Well, the Alhambra was built in 1913 and it first opened in 1914. Graves, Cumberland, who now run a number of cinemas and bingo halls in the county, ran it for over 50 years, from 1957 until Alan Towers took the leasehold in 2006.
It's a nice old traditional cinema, of which there are very few left. I spent a lot of money on new carpeting, new seats, sound system I upgraded to a nice new digital sound system, and we did some redecorating as well.
I don't think it made much money for any of them, but my dad, having worked here for over 20 years, couldn't bear to see the Alhambra shut just short of its centenary, so he took on a 5-year lease from Graves in 2012.
At the end of the 5-year lease, both Graves Cumberland and I were in some doubt as to how we would proceed beyond that stage. After a few days' deliberation, they said, well, look, would you like to buy the building and take over the whole enterprise?
The lease was coming up for renewal and he didn't want to commit to another 5 years. We just decided amongst ourselves that it would be a good idea to come and take it on, because there was a prospect of the cinema closing.
We decided, yes, we would buy it as a family venture.
It was in a bad state of repair and it needed to be redecorated.
It was always obvious that the place could do with a bit more TLC. We just started with the most urgent things. The roof had been leaking, so we put a new roof on. The next year we got a TripAdvisor review saying I thought the ceiling was about to fall in on me in the balcony, so we got the ceiling repaired in the balcony. We started on the redecoration of the auditorium in June of this year and used a local company, Keswick Scaffolding, to build the platform. They told us they thought it would take 3 days to do, but they did it in a day. We'd been thinking for a while about a new colour scheme, and we'd been looking around the building to see if we could find any clues to how it had been decorated originally.
We found some colours behind the screen, what we think were the original colours of the cinema, and Carol's then worked with Study Interiors to pick some Edwardian colours that match that colour.
I did look around in the back to see if I could see any original colours, and it was clear the radiators used to be gold. It was clear there was a bit of green and a bit of red. So I contacted Study Interiors.
What we tried to do was make sure that the colours were appropriate to the time of the cinema, i.e. 1913, 1914, Edwardian. So I referred to various books that I have in my own library and looked at typical colour schemes for that period.
You know, as a young boy, I came here with my mum, and if we'd behaved ourselves, we got to sit upstairs. So it's always been here, it's always been part of my life. Sophie did a lot of work on the research into Edwardian colours and the history of the cinema. We wanted to just enhance that, but also perhaps bring a little bit of modernisation to it.
The creams and the greens, although they're not in vogue now, they have been historically, and they definitely were in Edwardian times, so it's very much a heritage scheme. It's not a fashion scheme. So hopefully Carol, I think she's pleased with it. She'll tell me.
None of the painters we approached initially were willing to take on such a big job, and it was Study Interiors who introduced us to Tommy Collins because they knew about the work he'd been doing on Underscar Manor and at Lingholm. So we contacted him and he had no hesitation. As soon as he saw the building, he said, this would be a great project to do, and I'm up for it.
We're going to do the ceiling first, that's the first phase, then we're going to do the balcony and the walls, and then we'll move on to stripping the radiators and the panels. Hopefully taking back to former glory.
We got some fantastic decorative radiators around the building, and we hadn't realised initially that the panelling downstairs is actually metal because everything's got about 80 years worth of paint on it.
One of the most difficult things we're going to do is stripping the radiators and the ornate panels. It's going to be a task.
We knew we could afford to paint the ceiling, but once we started looking at the whole of the auditorium and realised how much work and time it was going to take to strip the radiators and to expose the panels, that's when we realised there'd be no way we could do it. And I just thought this might be the sort of thing we could ask for help with.
Carol, she's an ideas lady. She had the idea of a crowdfunding scheme whereby maybe we could encourage people to help us to restore some of the glory of some of the fittings in the interior.
And I had seen other crowdfunding attempts in the past, so I looked around at various crowdfunder websites and thought, yeah, we can do this.
And that turned out to be fantastically successful. We achieved the initial modest target within 2 weeks. and it went up to double that figure. So it'll make a fantastic difference to the impression inside.
The stripping and the repainting of the radiators was the worst and most time-consuming job of the whole restoration. It became obvious that if we took the carpets back, it would be a bit quicker. Nobody had known about the original flooring that we found on the right-hand side of the auditorium. It seems to be original parquet vinyl tiles. There's lots of repairs, but there's whole chunks of it that are in really good condition, and it confirms to us that the colour choice was just right because it matches perfectly with the scheme that we've chosen.
The Alhambra was built over a 6-month period for a total cost of £650. It has never closed, and it has been an icon in Keswick for over 100 years.
The way a cinema like this should be run is the way it's being run now, which is with like owner-operators.
We show mainstream films, we show a lot of small interest films. We've got state-of-the-art digital projection equipment here. We still retain the 35mm projector, which still works. We also get a lot of interest in live-streamed events such as ballet, opera, theatre. I think there's going to be more of a move towards that sort of thing.
There's only 8 of us who work at the Alhambra, so we're a small, close-knit team. Alan and I are the newbies, but between them, the rest of the staff must have done over 50 years. We're so grateful for all the people who've supported our crowdfunding campaign. We just couldn't have envisaged that it would look as good as it does. It's just been amazing how much we've managed to achieve with the help of our community, and we are so thankful for that. The general history of our cinema is that it's always been on the brink of closure. It's just wonderful to be able to be here at a time when the story is not about closure, but instead about what can you do to help the cinema, and people have all rallied round. We really feel with a beautiful cinema, it's going to be able to be continuing for the next century at least.